Welcome to Megapath Presents. I'm Ronnie Hayes, and today let's talk The Walking Dead Season 7, Episode 4, titled Service, which is the bullshit label they put on what they do to extort the communities. They provide a service taking care of the walkers around the perimeters, which is bullshit. Now, when I first started the Season 7 reviews, I did it in a closet here as a joke because of Enid, and I was kind of disappointed we didn't see her come out of the closet. I was kind of disappointed we didn't really see them returning or the next day. We kind of skipped a week, so I had a little bit of a sting of disappointment there. However, that quickly went away when I realized we were getting Negan and the Saviors right in the very beginning of the episode. I was thrilled about that, and I was even more excited because as the episode played on, it was like the comic book coming to life right out on the screen. They did a fantastic job with this episode. I mean, comic fans, this is going to be one of their best episodes. Most enjoyable, I should say. Now, here's the thing. That doesn't mean there aren't problems. There's definitely a clear problem that has to relate to the Saviors and how they acted, Negan, how he acted, and Michonne at the very end when she sees the burnt mattresses that the Saviors burnt up. We're going to discuss that at the very end because that has to relate to something that's coming up in Season 8-ish, and I want to do a comic book spoiler warning. We'll save that for the end. But when the Saviors show up, you guys know I am hard on Daryl Dixon. When he does something I think is kind of stupid, I say it. That fucker broke my heart without even saying a word. Just a look on his fucking face when they first got there. Man. Damn. And you could see it in Rick's eyes too, man. Every time he looked at Daryl, he was just crushed. And then when he had to watch him as he was driving away, and then you get Dwight still working him again. For Dwight, this is a job. His job is to break Daryl down and get him to say, "I'm Negan," and he uses the bike. At first, I thought Dwight just wanted to take his bike, and that's probably part of what it was, but Dwight is using that. Everything is used for multiple reasons. Dwight's like, well, I got a bike, plus I can use this to stick it to Daryl a little more, try to break him. Now, once inside Alexandria, we get a ton of different back and forth. Now, a lot of comic fans, I'm already preparing, they're going to be disappointed with Carl and Negan. In the comic, they had a lot more story, especially after this episode. I've been preparing ever since the second, third episode. It really sunk in, especially the third episode, that's not coming. So I've been preparing myself, but do not lose hope. I do think they're still going to do something with Carl and Negan coming up. I don't think this is going to be it. I know Scott Gimple said it's brief, but I don't think this is it. In this episode, they had a nice back and forth where Carl pulled a gun. In the comic, it was Denise, so I like how they had that little remix because on the show, obviously, Denise is dead. But Carl pulls a gun because he's pissed they're taking all the medicine. In the comic, it was the same way, but they were taking all the painkillers, everything that could be abused, and Denise is like, oh, that's not half. Now, the thing, though, with the altercations or interactions with the group, as great as they were, it felt like the Saviors, and this is part of the problem, the Saviors and Negan, it felt like they were pushing the people at Alexandria to fight, you know what I mean? Instead of being smart and pushing enough, like the Mafia. Their biggest thing is to milk somebody. You never take it all at once, you milk them to death. That's how they extort people. It feels like the Saviors are like, they can't control it. There's no self-control there. They're just like, we're going to push them until they just explode. Now, Negan, I can see it, because Negan comes in, he gives the bat to Rick, which, yeah, I really wanted to see Negan pick up Judith, but what are you going to do? He gives the bat to Rick, which was a comic book moment that I loved, and Rick carried it the entire time. And the thing with the bat, he's turning his back on Rick as he's walking around, pushing Rick. He's saying fucked up shit. He's getting Rick because Negan knows. Negan's not waiting. He's not waiting 2 or 3 weeks. He's not going to come in there all smiles and joking around and wait 2 or 3 weeks and then do something that's going to set Rick off. Negan's like, that's a waste of fucking time. I'm going to come in there. I'm going to push his buttons as much as I can, as bad as I can, and see if I can set this guy off. And if I set him off, then we'll fucking handle it, you know? But if I don't set him off, we might be able to work together in the future. That's why Negan is somewhat confident at the end of the episode that they made progress. If you didn't pick up on that, that is what it was about. Not just everything else that was going on. It was the stuff that wasn't said that was also extremely important. but Negan just keeps fucking going. But then we got Father Gabriel with that smirk that I loved, and he was smart enough to know to fuck with the grave. I know it sounded like he said he dug a grave. I think maybe he didn't dig a full grave, you don't need to, but maybe he dug the outline, fucked up with the dirt a little bit to make it look like a grave. Yeah, sure, you know. But I kind of am wondering, when did he think about that? Was that a last minute decision? If it was, that's pretty damn clever. You get the interaction there. Fantastic. You get the interaction between Negan and Rick throughout this episode. Carl a little bit, then you get it with Olivia. I think the actress playing Olivia's role did a fantastic job. And Mahoney, did I say that right? I always screw up on her last name. She did a wonderful job being scared shitless. There was that little bit with the gun that I thought didn't honestly need to be in the episode, but we got it, and it was important for Spencer's shit character. This is a character I enjoy. That's a shit character. Like, I am looking forward to him getting his teeth knocked out of his face. When Rick said that, I was like, fucking please, Spencer, say something. Say no. Fucking say no. Say anything at all. Get your teeth knocked. There's always those characters that do shit, and you're like, man, I want to see him get his teeth knocked out. So anyway, we also get a creepy interaction between a savior and Enid with the balloons. Now, I thought the balloons, Enid was holding on to that for sentimental reasons because of Glenn. They let the green balloons up to tell the people at Alexandria that they were okay. If there's some other symbolism you want to let me know, definitely let me know. But there's a lot more interactions throughout this episode, and that's what this episode was. A bunch of interactions between the characters, but also testing people, especially Rick, Negan testing Rick because he wants to know what Rick is going to do at the end of the day, and if he really puts the pressure on, he could find that out faster than later. And then at the end of the episode, when Rick gives him a gun he didn't even know about, he didn't have to give up that gun. It was a smart thing, and that is smart on Rick's part. I said it myself. I thought about it before. I'm like, why didn't Rick hide some fucking guns? You could burn the log. I mean, they kept a log is what screwed them about how much guns were there, you know? They could have hid their own weapons, kept all the Savior's weapons, but long story short, Rick said something and I was like, that's perfect. I mean, you could have hid them and then never used them and never get caught with them until you needed to go to war, sure. If you're gonna say that, sure, you're right. Rick should have hid them and told everyone that they don't have any weapons, yada yada yada. But Rick was right. If they hid weapons and pulled them out later, they could get caught with them and somebody will die. If they get caught doing any grimy, dirty, sneaky shit, someone will die. I think that is smart that they put the pressure on for this episode, and I think it helps the story, and it adds to the frustration. Throughout this episode, I was frustrated as fuck. So much so to the point where I almost started not enjoying the episode because I was so frustrated for the characters. I didn't go that far though because reality set in and I was like, yeah, you're supposed to feel how the characters feel. Frustrated like you're being squeezed alive, you know, because they're being pushed, pulled, squeezed, you know, bossed around. Negan comes in, said, oh, we're taking half, I'll be there in a week. He's early, and his half is whatever he determines. It could be everything. That's his half. It's whatever the fuck this dude says. So we get all the shit with the Saviors, and they bounce, and we get a fucking wonderful scene with Rick and Michonne for two reasons. One, Rick, I love when they bring up old characters in a way that fits the story. Rick brings up Shane, and Judith drops the bomb that leaves us with about 95% confident that Rick is not the father of Judith, and you respect him even more now, you know, a little bit more now. He knows it's not his kid, but that is his kid. He loves the kid now, and fuck, you're not going to give up the baby, especially now that you grew so attached to the child. He probably feels like Judith's father, even though he's not her blood father. But you also had a very good line where Michonne is honest, saying you can't blame yourself when fucking people die. I mean, especially not in this world. And Rick comes back, he's like, you know what? Sometimes it just is my fault. And yeah, you know, when you're the leader, you're not going to make 100% right decisions all the time. I do love how they were having Michonne, not to be bouncing around, but I do love how they were having Michonne trying to practice doing the sniper rifle, which I hope they continue, because if they can continue and make it believable and not feel rushed like she's adopting or soaking up some of comic Andrea's storyline, I think that would be absolutely awesome, you know? The Saviors being at Alexandria, though, really made me wonder why they haven't been to the kingdom yet. The kingdom doesn't know about them. And I'm wondering, is that because the people at the kingdom or the leaders and his little inner circle were submissive immediately? I mean, did they have one run-in, it went bad, and Ezekiel was like, okay, you know what, we will fall in line, just leave my people alone, yada yada yada? Because the kingdom, they're looking good. If Negan likes what they have at Alexandria, I mean, fuck, he would love the kingdom, you know? With that said, I love this episode. Really, like, at the end, I do want to throw this in here. Rosita shows the bullet, which I only took a glance. I didn't know to look for it, but it looked like it was the same weapon, so the cartridge will fit the gun that she found. Similar weapons, whatever, but she wants Eugene to make the bullets. Do not forget, Eugene found the factory where he can probably make bullets as long as they have the shells. So the innards, I believe he said it, that's all them, but they need shells in order to make bullets. So it's likely that we will see them go on scavenger hunts for shells. I know that sounds stupid, but if Eugene can make them, it's likely that they will go out, or that will be in a part of the story. I don't know how big of the story they're going to do that, but let's move over to one con that I was really struggling with while watching this, and it has to relate to the comic story. So if you don't want to hear about it, or you don't want to be spoiled about something that's going to come up possibly on the show, then leave now, but leave thoughts and opinions about this episode down in that comment box. And I haven't looked yet, but chances are we are either hitting 100k right now or right about to hit 100k. Massive thank you, and I will do a specific update video talking to you guys about that tomorrow. So thoughts and opinions in the comment box. Let's move over to my one huge problem. The Saviors and Negan were too aggressive. I know that sounds stupid, but hear me out. In the comic book, it felt balanced. Bad shit happens, and Negan counters with something good. He puts on pressure, but then he releases it a little bit. In the show, it felt like all pressure. You know, Negan left them with some guns. Well, you're going to need it to survive. You'll need a few guns. What are you going to do with the guns? I mean, it feels a little weak to be like, oh, I'm afraid for them to have a fucking handgun. You know what I mean? When you have all that, you have the numbers and you have all the people, but one handgun. And I know the whole two-gun thing, it was principle. It wasn't necessarily the guns, but at the end of the day, he could have threw them a gun or two and been like, all right, keep yourself safe when you go out on the runs. Run guns, you know? He could have left them some run guns, but anyway, in the comic, they did shit like that. They did a little bit in the show where Negan said, you can't starve to death, so I'm not going to touch your food. But they're taking chairs, they're taking beds, and we see later they just burnt the fucking beds. They're not even using them. Maybe we'll hear something later on about how, oh, it keeps them in survival mode, or it keeps them like beaten or not relaxed, or whatever the fuck you want to say. It feels like they are pushing the survivors to break, to pop, to crush, to crumble, to go to war. It's like they're forcing them to fight back if you keep just pushing down on them. Again, in the comic, it felt nice and balanced. Oh, here's some fucked up situation you're in, but when the Saviors and them show up, it's not bad. Negan even gets slapped in the face with Olivia, and he's like, you know what, boys, fall back. I'm not mad. I'm actually turned on. I mean, they do some silly shit in the comic, but again, it felt like it was balancing out the fucked upness, you know? The show feels like it's all fucked. It feels like they need to either fight back or die or flee, leave the area, like leave Alexandria. That's the only way if they don't have the numbers. And again, keep this in mind. If Rick and them were not, you know, connected with Alexandria, if they just didn't give a fuck about being in that one place, they could realistically leave. They could relocate. If Negan, and again, Negan doesn't want to kill them. He wants them to provide for him. If him and the Saviors are going to push on them so fucking hard, they could just relocate the fuck up out of there. You know what I mean? Anyway, that's my little gripe. It feels unbalanced as opposed to the comic. It felt real balanced with the bullshit and the relief. But you let me know down in the comment box if you are a comic fan. How do you feel about it? I mean, do you feel like it's no big deal? Do you feel like Negan knows that they're not fucking going anywhere? I mean, it's not that bad, yada, yada, yada. I would love to hear your thoughts and opinions. Again, my overall feeling every time we talk about something that didn't quite sit well with me, I get a million comments saying, I can't believe you hated this episode, I love this episode. I really enjoyed this episode, especially every single moment with the characters, especially Negan. I think Jeffrey Dean Morgan killed this episode, but just with the characters talking, like Negan and Rick, I can have a whole episode with them two just talking, and I can stand up with a stiffy, you know? I enjoyed the episode. There's just certain parts where it felt a little off, you know what I mean? Thoughts and opinions in that comment box. I'm done talking. It's your turn. Subscribe now.